How did Islamic architecture shape Britain? And why are we only talking about it recently? Because when we think about British architecture, we're usually taught a very narrow story of castles, cathedrals, Gothic arches, Victorian grandeur, all very British, all very European, all very self contained. But historians like Diana Darke have spent years showing that this version of history is incomplete because many of Britain's iconic buildings are shaped by architectural ideas that came from the Muslim world, from Andalusia to the Middle East, from North Africa to Mughal India. And once you start seeing those connections, you can't unsee them, and Britain's skyline starts to tell a very different story. But why does this history matter? Because we're living through a moment where Muslims are often framed as outsiders to British history, as if Muslim presence begins with migration in the 20th century. But as Diana Darke argues in her work, architecture exposes a much longer and deeper relationship between Britain and the Islamic world. Buildings are honest witnesses. They don't argue politics. They simply show us where ideas traveled, who learned from whom, and how cultures shaped each other over centuries. This isn't about identity politics, it's about historical accuracy. And one of Diana Darke's key interventions is challenging the idea that Gothic architecture was purely a European invention. So features like pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and intricate geometric decoration existed in Islamic architecture centuries earlier, particularly across Muslim Spain, the Levant, and North Africa. Through trade, pilgrimage, diplomacy, and even conflict, these ideas moved into Europe. And as Darke points out, medieval Europe didn't develop in isolation. It was learning actively from the Muslim world. Britain inherited those ideas not directly, but through centuries of transmission and adaptation. So take Durham Cathedral, for example. It's often celebrated as a triumph of Norman and Gothic architecture. Its structural forms closely resemble early Islamic buildings, especially in the use of the pointed arches and rhythmic repetition. And Diana Darke is careful here. She doesn't argue that British cathedrals are Islamic buildings. Instead, she shows how architectural knowledge crossed religious boundaries and cultural boundaries because builders cared about what worked. Stone doesn't care about borders. And if some influences are subtle, others are impossible to miss. So Brighton Pavilion is a striking example with its domes, its minarets, and Indo-Islamic interiors. And as Diana Darke notes, this fascination with Islamic aesthetics existed alongside British imperial domination of Muslim majority regions. The irony is sharp. Islamic architecture was admired, borrowed, even romanticized, while Muslim people themselves were ruled and marginalized. The building becomes a visual record of admiration without equality. Even Big Ben, often treated as the ultimate symbol of Britishness, sits within a Gothic tradition shaped by our earlier Islamic forms. Diana Darke's work consistently dismantles the myth of pure national architecture. There is no sealed off British style. There never was. Britain's buildings are the product of global exchange, whether we acknowledge it or not. And at a time when Muslims are repeatedly framed as newcomers or cultural outsiders, architecture tells a much older truth. Muslim influence didn't arrive yesterday. It's built into Britain's foundations. And as Diana Darke's research shows, recognizing this isn't about rewriting history, it's about reading it honestly. Britain has always been connected to the wider world. Its buildings prove it. And this video aims to draw on the work of cultural historian Diana Darke, whose research on Islamic influence in European architecture challenges many of the myths we were taught. If this changed how you see British buildings, please share it. And if you want more hidden histories like this, please subscribe to my channel on the link below.